Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. So great to have you here. I see more people joining. I guess to save time, I'll kick us off with some introductions and then we'll basically start the session. Um, First of all, perhaps actually, I'm Gal from Crowdvocate. If somebody doesn't know me, so nice to meet you all. I'm the CEO and co-founder at Crowdvocate. I'll talk about who we are and what we do in a minute. But first, I'll let Liz and Dana, who are probably the most advanced experts in the advocacy domain that I know, at least, introduce themselves.
Okay, awesome. We are so excited to be here. I am Liz Richardson, part of the dynamic duo with Deena. We have a long history together. We met as practitioners first, fell in love with the field of advocacy and its evolution. And I think we've been on a journey for the last, I don't know how many years it's been now, Deena, 8 years
Yeah.
on trying to trailblaze in the space of customer engagement and advocacy. And we are thrilled to be here with Gal. We've been wanting to partner, love a lot of what he is doing and the content he is putting out there. So thank you so much for having us.
I am Deena Zenyk, the other half of Captivate. And I will say, Gal, thank you so much for the warm introduction. In the time that I've known you, I certainly think that your thinking about customer marketing, customer advocacy is just really visionary. And the work that you're doing around that is really inspiring. So thank you for your contributions to this space that we love so much. And as Liz said, we're excited to be here and excited to jump in and share some of our recent thinking. That Liz and I do a lot of thinking when we have time to with our business. Some of our recent thoughts around where this space is going.
Truly hot off the press. So we're excited to share with you guys.
Yeah, so it's great to have you both, and we're going to talk about building customer advocacy strategy and tying that to the journey in 2021. I was told that this is a very new session with a lot of new content, so super excited to see this for the first time. And I think that we have more than actually 40 people now already waiting to listen. So let's dive in. Quickly, I'll just say to those of you who kind of don't know us, and just as an introduction, so Crowdvocate is a customer marketing platform, and we really think of customer marketing in a holistic perspective. When it started, maybe even 10 years ago or so, it was more siloed, like only references, only advocacy, somebody else does onboarding. Marketing communications is totally different, whatever. But I think today companies have matured to the point where everything post-sale, all your engagement with the customers, once they become customers, should be more holistic. For the customers, it's a singular experience. They don't really care that they move between departments, so it really should be a singular, holistic and journey to your customers. And it's also beneficial to the company that it is a singular journey. And that's why we look at all those pillars: community, user groups and events, advocacy, references, upsell, really is one single element journey of customer marketing with just subsets or pillars. Today, we're going to talk a lot about, how advocacy ties into all of that. And again, I said Liz and Deena are the experts on that matter, I believe. A bit about our journey as Crowdvocate within the industry. So, I mean, we're definitely heavy on building this category. We think that there's a very big potential out there as a market to change dynamics with CMOs, with marketers, with customer success departments, with product marketing, and build a much more robust customer marketing industry. We have webinars monthly. There's a Slack channel for practitioners in the industry. We have the expert zone, and you can see Captivate are in there. We love having people who are experts basically help companies build their programs for the first time or optimize their programs for the second or third time. And we love to connect with peers, so bring on any topic that you want. We'll talk about those as well. We have a job board if you need our help to find a job in this domain, reach out to somebody in this domain, feel free to reach out and we'll help you to connect, maybe help you to improve your LinkedIn or your CV. We're really happy to help practitioners in this domain succeed. And the domain is thriving. There's thousands of new jobs and a lot of new opportunities. So this is really great that companies actually understand the value of advocacy and customer marketing more so after COVID. The stat of the day, I like to show one thing, so I'll just focus on this. It's really, although it's 2019, I believe now it's even more so, but it's really nice to see the trend between 2015 to 2019, and this is a serious decision stat, so kudos to them. And you can see with 2015, the biggest influence was the promise of the offering your product. That was kind of the main thing that would win or lose a deal or a customer. And it's really interesting to see how those flipped. So now customers' voice, customers' influence, reference testimonials is basically double the value of the product. And all the companies who are and most SaaS, most tech companies are product-led and product-led growth and very focused on their product. And that's super important. We are too, we're a product company. But at the end of the day, it's very, I would urge you to share this stat with your product teams, with your sales teams, and help them understand that really at the end of the day, most products are pretty similar today. And it really is the voice of the customer that would win the deal. So that's why we're doing this webinar as well. We have upcoming webinars. Next one would be about influencers and strategic customer advocacy, upsell one-on-one. And if you have specific topics or you want to speak on one of our next webinars, reach out to me and I'm happy to discuss those or write those in the comments. And yeah, with that, I'll finish up. I'll say that Crowdvocate, like I mentioned, is a customer marketing and advocacy platform. We look at the life cycle. We look at the revenue influence. We help you find your advocates. We help you automate references and automate different types of advocacy with different types of customers across their journey in all your touch points. So your community and your product and your learning portal and your events and whatnot. And enough about us. Last thing, within the session, I'll have a quick poll with a few questions. 20 winners will receive, an ebook of their choice, or they can have a 1-hour consultancy with us. And I'm pretty sure that also Liz and Deena at the end of this session or later on the follow-up are going to offer some great stuff as well. So with that, I will shut up and let them start the show. Just one thing, the questions, please ask them in the Q&A. That way we can track them. You can write comments, of course, feel free to discuss, but please do the questions in the Q&A. That way we can track the fact that we've actually answered your question, and we will answer your questions during the session. Liz and Deena, the floor is yours.
All right. Perfect. So I am going to get us going here. Thanks for that. I'm really excited because Gal used a lot of the words we love to use as well, like holistic approach, customer journey. These are things we spend a lot of time thinking about. And so I'm really excited about talking, what does the future of customer advocacy look like? And Deena and I have been in this field for so long. Deena for even longer than me, back when customer advocacy programs were a spreadsheet. And we've seen the evolution of some of these tools come along, and we believe we are on the cusp of another evolution in the customer advocacy field. So let's start digging into that today. Quick lay of the land. We're going to talk about some of the points of the evolving world of advocacy, and then we're going to share 3 of our pillars. So Gal used pillars. We have 3 of our own pillars for a new framework for customer advocacy and engagement. And then we're going to try to bring it together for you for a little bit. Just so you guys know, we are going to move fast. This is how Deena and I operate. Lots of content, but we move very quickly. So please utilize those Q&A channels. We love for it to be very collaborative. Please don't just watch this as a webinar. Like Gal said, go grab a pen and paper, ask your questions. We would love for you to participate in this discussion because it's so new and it's so exciting for us. All right, so here we go. All right, a little bit about us. If you don't know Deena and I, we have a long history together, but we are now the Captivate Collective, and we are really honed in on the idea of helping companies engage their customers to accelerate their growth through advocacy initiatives on all stages of the buying journey. And we already talked a little bit about ourselves, so I'm not going to sit here too long. What we do love is the idea of looking at strategy holistically, not just from a point of view of one tool or one program, but we love to look at this idea of the power of customer engagement and advocacy from a very holistic and future-focused perspective. And that's what we help companies do. If you have any questions about us, you can reach out to us later, but this is about the content today. So we are going to be focusing in on advocacy and its evolution to get us kicked off. So in order to understand the evolution, we got to kind of take a step back and say, okay, well, what's what we call advocacy 1.0, right? So there was the spreadsheets, but even if we move a little bit around 2010, we started to see some of the evolution in this space where people started seeing the word customer advocacy next to titles. I remember having to ask for customer advocacy to be added to my title because I thought it was going to go somewhere. And sure enough, here we are today. And now there's lots of people with the title customer advocacy. So go ahead and answer Gal's poll there while we go. What we're going to focus on is just a little bit here. What was advocacy 1.0, right? So when we joined the field about 10 years ago, it was really that focus on your happy customers. What we're trying to do is we're trying to engage happy customers and we're handpicking them. However, we're doing that probably something very simple to begin with. The outcomes were really focused on marketing and sales, right? It was about the 3 R's, references, referrals, reviews. That's what we're trying to get. We're very much in that frame of reference. There was the promise of one-to-one relationship, right? That's why a lot of people wanted to engage. We were going to have these amazing relationships with our customers. And so we were able to deliver a truly different type of B2B relationship than what previously existed, although we know there's some difficulty in the scale of that. And then typically customer advocacy meant a program, right? That's what we were seeing. It's, oh yes, I do customer advocacy. This is our customer advocacy program. So that's where advocacy 1.0 was. So now we're going to see there's some challenges here. We've gotten to this roadblock. So Deena, talk to us about some of the challenges.
Yeah, sure thing. So over, I would say, in particular, the last 2 years, maybe 3 years, we're really starting to see these 4 challenges come to the forefront. So let's have a look at what each of these are. So engaging in place, Gal, you know all about this. So more and more customers don't want to come to where you're at. They want to be engaged where they are at, where it is convenient, at the right time, in the right place. So engaging in place really kind of flips the advocacy model. So no longer kind of build it and they will come, but now where are they and how can we reach them and what's the right time? Further to that, we have what we call 50 shades of advocacy. So the idea that your customers are, unique, real individuals means that the way that they want to advocate with you and for you is different from person to person. So we no longer have the benefit of kind of building a one-size-fits-all type of approach to advocacy. Of course, there's increased competition. For many, many years, companies have been doing some form of advocacy, whether they called it advocacy or not, but with more kind of formalized advocacy. We are increasingly facing competition for our customers' time to participate in opportunities with us. And then, of course, I know this is Liz's favorite hot topic, and that's personalization at scale. Is that really a thing? Can we really personalize interactions at scale? We, of course, with the tools that we have available today and connecting those tools, we believe that you can. So these 4 challenges together really are what are pushing this movement towards a rethinking of what customer advocacy is, and that's the 2.0 version.
Mm-hmm. So we're claiming it, we're naming it and claiming it, Advocacy 2.0, it's here. So what does that mean for us? And Deena and I sat down and hammered out what we think Advocacy 2.0 means and taking our thinking forward in the customer advocacy space. So surfacing and maximizing the unique value of every customer, right? As opposed to our top picks through an integrated, personalized engagement journey. So integrated, like Deena said, where they're at, personalized. It's specifically and more personalized to my needs, my journey, across that journey. So alignment with that customer journey across multiple channels. So no longer one single destination, supported by a portfolio of programs aligned to a single strategy and brand. We're going to dig into this, but I hope you're already a little like, huh, okay, all right. All right, so here we go. Advocacy 2.0.
Yeah, before we jump in and keep kind of moving along with 2.0, just a quick pit stop here for just a point about strategies. So if this resonates with you, then great. If you're really doing this and thinking about good strategy, then even better. But more often than not, we have seen in kind of the 1.0 land of advocacy, almost kind of a fly by the seat of your pants, like advocacy is buzzy, it's great, you know, you're going to get some funding for your efforts and keep your customers happy and drive some results. But really good strategy, strong strategy, real business strategy is what's going to give you direction and keep you on track as you're starting to navigate multiple programs, multiple channels, multiple internal stakeholders who may be dispersed across departments, but all leveling up into a single unifying strategy. So it's a strategy that is the glue that holds the ecosystem together. So it's no longer a tool-specific strategy, which at one point was perfectly acceptable. This is really leveling up to you know, a business critical, business level strategy as it should be.
And you'll see a slide like this in every single presentation that Deena and I do.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Okay, go ahead, Liz.
So a customer engagement ecosystem. So understanding that here we're at Advocacy 2.0, understanding that the strategy is integral and that you have to have that in place. So what does a customer engagement ecosystem look like when we look at that Advocacy 2.0 definition? So Deena and I have created a framework for this customer engagement ecosystem, and we're going to have 3 pit stops here. So 1 is data and discovery, 2 is ungated advocacy, and 3 program portfolios. So we're going to dig into this, but first we wanted to give you a bit of a visual on how we view this ecosystem. We definitely view it as a spinning circle. So on the outside here, we have our data touch points. How are we listening? How are we exploring who our customers are? How are we discovering what is important to them, what they need? And then we have 2, which is this ungated advocacy. So this is probably the newest part here, is this idea of, hey, you know, people want to interact where they are. Everyone has different needs, and there's so much opportunity when you align with the customer journey to integrate into that journey and align their advocacy journey with that customer journey. So one of my big soapboxes is, you know, we have our advocacy journey and we have our customer journey, and they can be 2 totally different streams. And that just doesn't need to fly anymore in the world of Advocacy 2.0. It is time to improve our thinking around how we are interacting with our customers and become a whole lot more strategic than, hey, we're dumping a bunch of people in a program and we'll see what spins out of that, but rather come to them where they are at in their customer journey, and then understand what's the right opportunity there. How can we help them be more successful? How can we get the right promotions or content in front of them? And then how can we nurture them onto that point of what's the right advocacy ask at the right time? Okay. And then of course, there's still a room for that formal program portfolio, but instead of one program, we really see an umbrella of programs that house multiple types of formal opportunities for your customers. And then of course, the outcomes that everyone is trying to get to, which is ultimately customer advocacy, right? You're trying to make your customers successful. You're trying to make them loyal so that they're repeat buyers and they're coming back all the time. And then the ultimate goal is to get customers to advocacy, a point of advocacy. So we're going to dig into each of these. This is why I'm not going to sit here, but I wanted you to understand and see this is a flow. People, you're using all those data points from one to spin into that second layer and interact with them where they're at along that customer journey. And then when the time is right and the opportunity is right, you're getting them and spinning them into that number 3 of that formalized program where you can really dig deeper into that relationship and spin out the outcomes of number 4. Okay.
All right, let's dig into data and discovery. So this isn't new, right? I mean, from the beginning of having good tools, we should be looking at the data that we have available to help us, make informed decisions at work. But if we move ahead, Liz, what we saw in 1.0, I mean, I cannot tell you how many times we went into, design a program and launch a program, and we would start the discussion around who do we want to invite into this kind of singular advocacy program? And someone would always say, well, let's start with our NPS 9s and 10s. Let's get those people to come on in because they are for sure our advocates. But more and more kind of the concept of NPS is being dismantled. And we have been saying for a long time that NPS doesn't actually tell you who your advocates are. Right? Like the question that NPS is asking is not specific to what we see as all of the potential of advocacy. So if we look at data and discovery, which, our definition here, data and discovery is meeting customers where they're at. It first requires a deep understanding of the customer, and we can do this through all of the great data that we have available. I would always say to people like, hey, just go on a deep sea fishing expedition in your CRM, and you'll be amazed at what you'll find there to help you make informed decisions. So in the 1.0 version of data and discovery, it was pretty limited. So again, NPS is somewhere that would definitely be a starting point for a lot of people. It worked at some point. The limited Salesforce data. So Salesforce is good. It still, it always strikes me as kind of funny that Salesforce is a CRM, a customer, relationship management tool, but the data that we house in Salesforce is typically pretty kind of businessy, pretty dry. And then the social interactions is a place as well where we could surface some data. But if we look at what is happening now in this evolution in the 2.0 version, what we're advocating for is to look more broadly at the data sets that you have available. Look more broadly at the interactions that your customers are having, for example, with your product, with your surveys, what sort of responses are they giving there? With your content, we have amazing tracking tools and tracking capabilities to help us understand who is doing what exactly are our customers doing, what are their touch points with us. And when we look at this all together with Salesforce data, with the social interactions, and heck, you know what, even throw some NPS in there if you really feel tied to that, go for it. But look at the full picture of what your customer is doing, how they are interacting with you, get a better idea of what their journey is, and what their true value is to the business. Someone giving you an NPS 10 doesn't really translate to the true value that you can mine with this holistic view.
I would add,
So we
add
built in
to
some.
that, Deena, just adding to that, I mean, there's also like a lot of companies don't look at their, existing, if you will, real estate, like your community.
Right.
That's amazing data for you. Your LMS, your
Yeah.
training portal, that's amazing data for you.
Mhm.
Your events, who registers to events, are they active in your events? I mean, there's so many data points and data and customer journey data that companies have by default because it's their, real estate. Again, it's their touch points with their customers, and they just totally ignore those as important. Like you said, it's what's in Salesforce. Okay, maybe
Yeah.
what's the product, and that's it. Everything in the
Yeah.
middle is gray space.
Maybe because
Mhm.
that's the easiest data to grab.
is.
Like there's a
Right.
million integrations, right, to Salesforce. So, they've created an amazing ecosystem to make them the center of the world. But I'm really encouraged because we've been working with clients recently who are taking the extra work in order to think about what are these other programs, we called them external programs in that slide before, where we can get a sense of who these people are, what they want, and where they are in their journey with us.
Yeah, I love the point that you made there, Gal, about events. And I know we're so far away now from those in-person events, but even just thinking the context of an event. So you have someone that registers for your conference and attends your conference and goes to some sessions, and we would look at that data, and that's great. But what about the person who goes to that event, goes to all of the mixers, goes to all of the networking events, does a few on-site sales references, goes out for a CEO dinner? Looking at that holistic picture paints a very different advocacy scenario or an advocacy kind of persona
Right.
than just looking at, oh, we had this person attend our event.
I think we're going to move forward to get to point number 2, but this is a question for you guys just to think about, right? What's informing your customer marketing advocacy engagement strategy? What's that data that you are looking at? And it's okay. Most people are looking at Salesforce, and I know a lot of programs aren't even connected to Salesforce. So it's okay to start small. It can be overwhelming, this land of data. We're used to being the people.
And HubSpot, you're right, Scott.
Yeah, we're used to being the people.
No offense to HubSpot, Scott. Of course, HubSpot.
Hey, we use HubSpot. We love HubSpot.
And now this role, we're having to think more technically. So that is part of the evolution here, is we have to, as practitioners, be a little more advanced in our technical thinking.
Yeah. So while we go on, just encouraging people to write questions, and also, in the chat, feel free to write data points that you're looking at. I think it will be very, very interesting for everybody to look at other companies' data points and learn from those. And we have a question from Andrew, but let's move on and then we'll hit the question. So keep them coming in.
Yeah, we will get to you, Andrew. So now we're going to talk about that second. So this is what we said was that middle section. That's probably the most forward thinking, or the one that's the least explored at this point. So this idea of ungated advocacy. So we believe in taking your customers on an engagement journey by presenting the right opportunity to the right customer at the right time. This is a sophisticated model. I always will tout that B2C is a little in front of us because they are doing amazing things with a ton of data. They are following you. They know when you're looking for things. They get me at night on the little baby girl clothes. I can't help myself. They just know. And so this is some of the savviness that we want to bring to the B2B field, keeping all the goodness of those relationships. All right, so what did Advocacy 1.0 look like, right? We hand selected our participants, like, okay, CSMs, give me your best people, sales reps, give me your best people, NPS. There was a separate advocacy journey to the customer journey, right? I could be like level 10 in my advocacy program, and I could be like first year, haven't spent a lot with you, don't plan to spend a lot with you. And so we were looking at you one way as an advocate, one way as a customer. How do we bring that together? Gated membership, right? So you had to be part of a login to participate in the program, which could be a blocker for some. And it was a program for advocates. So this label, advocacy, is something that's still being used, but I think we know we're having to expand our language. Just because someone doesn't call themselves an advocate does not mean that they are not doing acts of advocacy with you. And we were able to function in a silo. I own my advocacy program. I do everything. Yeah, I'll get some ideas from my outside departments, but overall I can function quite independently. So now as we move into 2.0, we're mapping opportune moments into the journey. We're looking at the journey and saying, okay, what are these opportune moments where we can engage with customers and enhance that customer experience, find the right call to action, and allow for ungated, unlabeled advocacy. You don't have to get the advocacy card in order to engage. So we're looking for opportunities that are honed to every customer based on that data that we just talked about. We want to integrate marketing and advocacy engagement with those customer journey milestones. Are you celebrating someone reaching year 2 as a customer as much as you're celebrating them doing a speaking opportunity for you? It's really imbalanced. It really drives me crazy because this person who's renewed with you for 3, 4, 5 years is showing the ultimate act of advocacy. They are loyal to you. And then we're going to meet customers in the channels where they're already engaged. We're not going to demand that you come and play on our turf. We're going to say, okay, we want to interact with you where it's convenient for you. And then that idea of collaboration across all the departments is becoming more and more integral to what we are able to do.
All right. Yeah, so Liz, you had mentioned opportune moments, and I saw a couple of questions come through there about, some practical examples of this kind of ecosystem, this advocacy ecosystem in action. We've actually mapped out some examples for you after we get through the 3 points. So we'll go through those. I see some comments coming in to show the last slide. I don't know if you want to pop back. Do we have a, yeah, take a screenshot, or if you have a question.
And by the way, all this is recorded and you'll get the link to the recording so you could picture all the slides later on as much as you want.
Right. Good,
right.
good. All right. Opportune moments. So opportune moments, we're talking about, reaching people where they're at. Ungated advocacy, unlabeled advocacy, not being a card carrying, flag waving advocate. So where is it that you hone in on the journey to start to nurture the relationship with your customers, and also start to put those, to use your language, Gal, to put those asks in front of your customers? And we break these out into two streams. So the moments of truth and the points of friction are two streams where we believe you can hone your efforts based on whatever your strategy is, right? Because there are 1,000,001 moments of truth and points of friction for your unique business. Going back to that strategy, that North Star, that's going to help you to understand, well, where do you want to pinpoint your time and spend your time and energy? So let's have a look at what we mean when we say moments of truth. So these are the points in the journey that are super important, and so important that the experience that your customer is having with you may actually hinge on them. So these are crucial points in the customer journey. They are the times when your customer's sentiment about you can be formed, and sometimes it cannot be changed if the experience at this moment of truth is such that the experience gets pushed in a really negative direction or in a really positive direction. When I say that it can't be changed, we've seen that, right? And I'm sure that you've seen that. You have advocates who are so on side with you, customers who are so on board with who you are and what you stand for, that even then when they have a negative experience, they are still with you. And in fact, they will give you the feedback about how you can improve. So these moments, the positive moments, the negative moments, these moments of truth, these are the times when, as employees, as practitioners, we can either exceed expectations or not meet expectations. So just a few examples of what these moments of truth might be that you may want to focus in on. So it could be a CSM changeover. This is just so brutal, especially you have a customer who is not in a good place, and then all of a sudden your CSM submits their resignation. What can you do at that moment with the tools that you have to make that CSM changeover more pleasant? Could even become a delight. The move from a high touch to a low touch model. Liz and I have lived through this as practitioners. Again, that can be a very positive experience, or it can be a negative experience, depending on what your touch points are and how you orchestrate, how you want to work your customer through that moment of truth. Moving from one journey stage to the next. Asking yourself what happens after a bad support experience. Do you just kind of let the customer move along and fester and form their opinion of you based on their last bad support experience? Or do you have mechanisms in place so that you are surfacing when that bad experience happens, and then having a trigger and a follow through to start to try to mend that negative experience? And then the poor product feature rollout for all of us in SaaS. We've all lived through a product feature rollout that doesn't quite go as expected. Just like in life, how we respond and how we react to these moments of truth, these experiences, even the ones that we can't really plan for. Like the poor product feature rollout, that's really what matters. So the moments of truth are the points on the journey where you have an opportunity to oftentimes proactively build what we call a flow to help to make sure that the experience becomes a positive one for the customer and for your business. If we move to the next slide, we also have these points of friction. So points of friction are very specific to the funnel. We know that we need to get people from onboarding, through adoption, renewal, growth, and we want to get people to become advocates. Points of friction are just simply the reasons why your customers aren't moving through the funnel. So understanding what those points of friction are, looking at the data to understand where the points of friction are occurring, excavating a little bit to understand why that point of friction exists, and then building out a flow, a series of touch points using different channels, different methods, different messaging to help move people through that point of friction. So again, there is no there's no shortage of points of friction in any journey. There's no shortage of moments of truth for your unique business and your customer's unique journey with your business. Understanding your strategy will help you to understand where you want to focus on both of these spectrums.
I'll play the devil's advocate. I get
Yeah.
this question a lot, so now I'm going to send it your way. So, hey, but what you're talking about is customer success. It's, the CSM's job to take care of these points of friction and onboarding and when customers, whatever, go rogue or whatnot. I mean, what the heck does customer marketing have to do with that?
Yeah, we, this is part of the evolution of advocacy as well. We have another slide we usually show in every presentation, but I kept it back this time. I didn't want to drown anyone, but that expanding role of what customer marketing and advocacy actually is, right? It used to be customer advocacy was, hey, we get our happy customers to create great content for us to help with the sales cycle. And then we in return bring value and wonderful experiences to them. That role has expanded not just to be like, this is how we interact with our advocates, it's how do we grow our advocates. So if you keep that North Star in place of, okay, I need to build a function or a practice that is moving people towards that point of advocacy. That means I have to help them be successful. And it means I have to help build brand affinity and loyalty, and then they can get to that point of advocacy. So we see the customer marketer or advocacy practitioner's role as having expanded, and what they have is a unique position and ability to scale some of those interactions and to bring disparate interactions, right? Deena just talked about all kinds of interactions. Some belong in support, some belong in customer success. So what we love to explore here is this idea of the marketer has tools and systems and relationships, kind of a trifecta of abilities here, and able to help build processes around that journey to move it forward, to help accelerate, to help enhance. So they certainly aren't the customer success manager, but the customer success manager also does not have the tools and the systems in place in order to automate and scale personalization, right? And so it's just too hard. We know the one-on-one is too hard. If you've been running an advocacy program, you know that like that 1% always just ends up being at the top, and that's kind of where your relationships end up sitting. So how do you make it feel like your engagement with this company is personalized to your needs, to your desires? How do we know who they are? So we have to scale with that data. We have to flow that data into the right systems. And then we have to build journeys that help people get through the journey faster and do it in a scaled and personalized way so that it's very effective.
Yeah, that's great response there, Liz. And I'll add that as we're thinking about 2.0 and kind of developing this concept into practice, it really is about that unifying strategy and taking down the walls. Like essentially we're handing our customers the keys to the organization and saying like, here's the journey, here's how you're moving through the journey. It doesn't matter to the customer who owns what piece of the journey. It's all about moving the customer along to get to the point of advocacy. So for the advocacy practitioner, that's your mandate. So really part of your scope is understanding what are all of the blockers to getting someone to that point. And then in the best, healthiest organizations, having open, honest, and direct conversations with the people who, do own those pieces of the journey, who are responsible for that piece of the function, so that we understand we're all working together for the customer, for the business.
And then you all win, right? The value
Mhm.
proposition to your internal stakeholders, if we're speaking their language, if they understand that what you're building is to accelerate their goals. And then if you guys have aligned goals, so that's part of what we're going to get into next, is this idea of aligned and overarching goals, so that we're not looking at disparate programs all over the place, but we're looking at singular advocacy engagement strategy.
Yeah, let's bump along to talk about portfolios here.
Gal, did you have something you wanted to say? I saw you unmute.
No, I saw a great question from Deb of how do you move, even though she put it on comments and on Q&A, how do you move companies from Advocacy 1.0 to Advocacy 2.0? It's a very interesting question, but I think maybe go with your slides and then we'll answer all the questions at the end.
Okay. Deb, I saw that and I do want to answer it.
Mhm.
So just a question for you to think on, since we're not stopping here, but is what are the opportune channels for engaging with unlabeled customers outside program borders? And just think about, there's a million channels, right? We already know. And there is difficulty in going across the channels. We're not saying this is easy. This is very forward thinking. This is very next level. We do know some people who are working on it. I'm going to call out Scott. Scott, I know you've got some really forward thinking in this area. And so we are going to start to see pioneers who are doing the slow, hard work of bringing these systems together. But you can start small. Don't feel like now I've got to look in every single channel across every single department. Start with one opportune moment. Where is one point of friction where if I could help influence that by creating automated journeys, scaled journeys, I would be able to really help the bottom line of this organization. Start small. We all started small. Deena started out by handing out t-shirts in a cubicle.
True.
That was advocacy. That was advocacy. And look where we are today. So don't be discouraged, especially if you're not technical, but talk to experts. Talk to experts, get help. But certainly take the first step.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with handing out t-shirts at trade shows. It was awesome.
All right, program portfolios. So now we're going to talk about this idea of, moving away as we look into Advocacy 2.0 from a singular program, a singular destination, and looking at advocacy programs as a portfolio, an umbrella, but housed under, so important, a single strategy. Because let me tell you, you can have 5 different programs, but if all those 5 different programs have different strategies in place and they are not aligned, well, you just have 5 different programs and a very disjointed customer experience, which you guys all know because there's lots of customer engagement programs out there today.
Yes, and buckle up because we're going to move through this section pretty fast so that we have time for your questions. And there are a lot of great questions here.
So there's no one size fits all advocacy program. So if you haven't decided or discovered that yet, you will very soon. We do a lot of research with our customers before they decide on their platform. And a lot of the time what they discover is, oh my goodness, we can't just have one program because we're not going to be able to reach all the different audiences that are involved. All right. So no one size fits all. So the old advocacy. So when we look at formalized programs based on data discovery, interaction with them on that customer journey, and then finding those right people to be part of that formalized program, the umbrella of programs. We're moving from that singularly focused program. So advocacy does not mean a program, right? And we are working with some really big companies who have very much bought into, we do not want advocacy to be known as a singular program. That's not what advocacy is at our organization. It is a much bigger strategy, a much bigger idea. So it's time to up-level your strategy out of a single program. Standalone programs and standalone strategies, right? I had my KPIs. Maybe I was helping someone else with their KPIs, but it wasn't, we were not responsible to each other in what those measurements were. And again, the measurements there. So what are we moving to? This idea that advocacy happens everywhere. That's one of Deena and I's favorite phrases. Don't limit advocacy to inside a program. Advocacy happens everywhere. In fact, some of the best advocacy is happening where you can't even measure it. But you can meet them along that journey to really reach people who you are not and do not want to be labeled as advocates. Multiple programs are designed to fit unique needs, preferences, and goals because everyone is different. And you have that overarching advocacy strategy. and you are having to collaborate 100% with more stakeholders inside. But this is the beauty of where customer marketing advocacy is going. It is touching every part of the organization, so you no longer can be siloed.
Yeah, and I would say, to answer Deb's question, like, how would you get your company to start moving from 1.0 to 2.0? It's the strategy. It's having a unifying strategy. It's getting the stakeholders in the room and agreeing that this is where we're trying to get to with our customers, and these are the people that need to be involved. This is how we're going to hold ourselves accountable.
Yeah, it's truly another full-time job, advocating for the idea of overarching advocacy at your organization. Shout out to Charlotte Lilly from Coupa. She was the first one to show me this, and I love it, so I use it all the time. So how do we think about what that portfolio program needs to be? And so looking at your customers and saying, okay, where are they? What is it? So here we have all customers, we have advocates, and then maybe we have special group or groups that we are trying to directly get involved with, whether that be a target market or the C-suite or whatever it may be. And then starting at the bottom is where you'll do more of that scalable, engage in place type of advocacy. And that's where we see journey engagement flows. They are aligned to the customer journey, and you are able to touch them where they're at. And then of course, all your normal customer marketing activities. And then you have your traditional advocacy programs, but now under a single strategy, under a single brand, we would even say. And you have your high touch programs for your specified audiences. So this is an example of how you might look at your customer base, divide it into applicable audiences, and then align what are the programs that are serving each of those audience sections.
A quick shout out to Mary Leslie. Hey, Mary Leslie. TABS, that's Technical Advisory Board. I saw your question come through there, what that acronym stands for. And CABS, it's a Customer Advisory Board. Oh, TABS. Sorry, I'm trying to keep going with the chat here while I'm also presenting. If anyone knows me, it's like I can't chew gum and drive at the same time. I'm a very focused person. Okay, so this idea of the cohesive structure and the brand umbrella, this is really cool. As Liz said, we're working with a really big client right now who has these programs, and they are customer advocacy type programs for very different audiences. And we're working now kind of retroactively with them and building out a brand umbrella under which all of these programs can sit. Because at the end of the day, it's about the customer, and it's about helping them to navigate the opportunities that are available at your business with your company. The brand umbrella helps to unify those programs in terms of kind of look, feel, and it sets out the journey for that customer who does want to participate in different types of opportunities with your business. I think we have an example here from Marketo. Shout out to Marketo. We love this graphic. We think every organization should have a graphic just like this. So this lays out the kind of ecosystem of programs that are available to Marketo advocates, Marketo customers. And if what's kind of interesting about this, because lots of companies have lots of programs, right? And so, that in itself isn't super interesting. What I like about how Marketo has laid this out, when you look on the right side, you see the skill level going from beginner to expert. And we see that their journey is really built off of that skill level. So that's kind of the unifying piece that dictates what this journey is for the user. So if we were to look at this from a strategy perspective, what would be one of the strategic priorities that is driving how this is laid out? It would be product expertise is really super important to Marketo. That's why they've built out this, this flow so that there's something for everyone. And it's a journey. You can start out in community, you can move on to the mugs, to the user groups, move into Purple Select, which is a fabulous program that we know very well. So we love this. If you have a portfolio of programs, even if they're not under you, if they're completely disconnected, not connected by strategy or brand, think about how they are arranged from the customer's perspective, and think about what that spectrum is. What is that thread that goes through all of these programs? What is that journey that you can lay out to move people from kind of a ho-hum everyday community member all the way up through to something like Marketo's very well-known champion program?
And it may not be expertise. It may be, like we said, different roles. So
Yep.
programs applicable to different roles, different types of interactions. But it's great to see someone trailblazing. Hey, how do I help my customers think about which programs are applicable to them?
And it's not necessarily linear, to Scott's question. I mean, even if
Right.
you took even if you took a look at this Marketo's journey, I mean, at some point a person might be a reference, and somewhere there in that journey, and then a while later on, he or she are not, and they're just active. They're active in the community, but they're less so advocating for one or two reasons. And maybe they change role, maybe they change expertise, maybe they, I don't know, whatever. But I mean, it's at the end of the day, these. It doesn't have to be linear. People would move between different activities based on where they are in their journey and where they are personally, and not necessarily just based on the journey you built for them.
Right.
Right.
Or their preferences. Let's not forget this.
Yep.
All right, we're gonna blaze through this. So, but just a question for you to think about: what are the blockers for having unified strategy? So, one of those already got called out. It takes a whole lot of people, a whole village, to build things like this. But again, start small. It's okay. Just take one area of opportunity and lead with that. This is not going to be built overnight. So let's bring it all together very quickly so we can get to any questions. So this is just some examples of what those Advocacy 2.0 journeys might look like. So you might have a support ticket that closes, and let's say they gave a CSAT of 4 or 5, and that's kind of the end of that, right? In today's world. Okay, great. Thank you for that. So you could get a message in a ticketing platform or in a product pop-up using a tool of choice, or you could trigger an email. And then that could be an opportune time to ask someone to join your program. So this is a very, very simple example, meeting them where they're at, identifying that this might be someone who's ready to engage in something more formal. And then in that program, because they had a good support interaction, they might be a prime candidate to ask to write a review. You might even ask them to write a review without joining a program. So you can meet them where they're at for that active advocacy. And then, of course, if they were part of a formal program, recognizing them with something like a badge in honor of that activity. Let's say for something more complex, let's say they are stuck in certification. I've actually been working with a client on something just like this. So the LMS data we're using is coming in saying, okay, they haven't completed within our standard time. Let's say it's 3 weeks. So we have, again, we use a tool to meet them where they're at, or we use good old email marketing automation, and say we offer them help inside of that certification journey, what we call 911. Hey, how can we help you? Are you stuck in your certification? What is it? What do you even think about your certification so far? Maybe you're hating it. You think it's boring, right? And then we're able to automate that. And if they respond a certain way, give them the assistance that they need to help them propel and move forward through that journey. And then ask them to rate their experience in the certification after that point, because you've been able to help and stick them from that. And another quick example. So you've completed onboarding. This is a customer milestone event. Boom, I've completed my onboarding. It's a very exciting time. And we know that onboarding is probably one of the most structured times in a customer's life cycle. So we need to capitalize on some of these low-hanging fruit opportunities. So they complete onboarding. It's marked complete in Salesforce. So maybe that's your data point, data trigger. And from the CSM, but automated, of course, there's probably a direct congratulations email. We see that you have completed all your onboarding. That's amazing. Then maybe they offer them a gift in that message, or outside through a tool, but probably in that message saying, we'd love to celebrate that onboarding completion in our community. Go and claim your gift. Go join the ranks of onboarded customers. So maybe they join the community. Inside the community, they get that onboarding complete badge. And then maybe because they've made it through onboarding, they had a good experience, hopefully, and then they are willing to mentor someone else who might be going through onboarding. Would you like to help or buddy up with someone who's going through that onboarding experience, since you just came out of it and you know exactly what they're going through? These are just examples of how to create flows that have meaning and help get people through points of friction. This is a point of friction. Sorry, the last one was a point of friction. This is a milestone, a moment of truth. I've completed my onboarding. Okay. Super quick, because we can't sit on any of it. So bringing it all home, how do you make it successful? So our key point is always going to come back to relevance. The data that you're mining helps you to create relevant opportunities, asks, touch points along that journey, understanding where they are and aligning, so that when you do interact with them, that piece of content, that opportunity, or that experience is highly relevant because it's the right person in the right channel at the right time. And that's how you create that engagement and move people through that customer and advocacy journey hand in hand. All right. Sped through that last bit so that
there's lots of great, there's lots of really good questions, lots of really good
lots of good questions. So first of all,
Yeah.
I mean, before we do a few things, first of all, for everybody, thank you for joining us. Thank you, amazing Deena and Liz, for all this content and all your, thought leadership, and it's amazing. We'll answer as many questions as we can right now. We'll stay over for anybody who wants to stay over for the questions, and we can even email these questions actually afterwards with answers. So very happy to answer whatever we can now. But this was amazing. I think everybody and I myself learned a lot. So thank you so much. Let's start with the questions. I think we'll start with Andrew because he waited really nicely.
Yeah, he sure did. Andrew, you're so patient.
So I mean, his question is, do you see kind of advocacy and customer marketing, lifecycle marketing combined together? I mean, my short answer is of course, but your answers.
Gal already answered it. There you go. Yeah, I mean, I think we know the lines are blurring so hard that people don't even know sometimes when to use customer marketing or advocacy. Yes, we have defined some differences, but the goal is really very similar. We're trying to make customers successful. We're trying to build brand affinity, and then we're trying to get to that point of advocacy. So whether you're just focusing on what you do at that point of advocacy, or whether you're focusing on that entire journey to the point of advocacy, I think these lines are getting more and more blurred, which I think is a great thing because it's really enhanced the scope of both of those roles.
Yeah, like we said, at the end of the day, it's a customer journey. There's no point in disconnecting them. It's good for your customers. It's good for your company to actually combine them together. It makes sense. And you get more resources. Anyway, next question from Kate. In the career growth pitch, is the career growth pitch powerful enough for anyone beyond director title? And is swag an issue for some, and also swag is an issue for some companies? So two different questions here. First of all, if I'm a director plus, am I still interested in doing advocacy so I can build my brand? That's kind of her question. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a good question, and that gets us to kind of the second piece of our ecosystem, that ungated, unlabeled interaction, so that you don't have to kind of put up the smoke and mirrors. Like if you just want some references, or you just are looking to drive some reviews, look at the data that you have to identify who is ripe for that opportunity, and then just go for it. When you put that ask of, say, a reference in the context of advocacy, sometimes we tend to put up a bunch of smoke and mirrors about that this is great for your personal brand and your professional growth and all of these value proposition, these value statements, when really, if you're meeting someone outside of the context of advocacy, meeting them where they're at based on the data that you have on hand, you no longer have to rely on those stale value statements.
Cool. And then we have from Grace, how do you incentivize customer to join to a new program?
It's about knowing. It's about knowing what they want and what's important to them, right? And so while there's a lot of tactics around, okay, how do I make it exciting? How do I kind of, maybe throw some extra sugar on top? At the end of the day, if what you are offering as part of the program is valuable to them, more valuable to them than doing something else, that's the reason they're going to join the program.
If it's relevant, if it's relevant to them.
And that's why you can't have a single program, right? You can't be everything to everybody. So understanding and nuancing the messaging and the value of what each program is bringing to segments of audiences is very, very important. And when you have that right messaging and that right value and are able to deliver on that value, then it's a no-brainer for someone. I talk about your no-brainer reason to join a program. B2C does this really well. They force us to join programs all the time because we feel stupid if we don't, because we're throwing away money, or we're not going to get our free gift. And why would I just not get my free gift, or whatever it is? B2B programs haven't really thought through very strategically what is the no-brainer reason I need to be in this program, which forces me to join the moment I see that invitation. And so look at your B2C cousins. We usually do a whole other workshop on that, so I don't dig into it, but they have some really good examples of how they get people to join, because it just makes sense for what I value and what I want from this organization.
Yeah, and I think what I'll say kind of in closing here with this 2.0, thank you for everyone that came to the talk today, but this is emerging. The practice is developing. Real life examples are coming. We are working with clients who are making these moves to become fully kind of 2.0 in their approach to advocacy. So watch this space. It is going to be changing quickly. Gal, of course, and Crowdvocate on the forefront of that from a tool perspective, and a lot of thought leaders and practitioners out there who are pushing the envelope as well.
Yeah, so thank you again for you both. Great session. You see the thank yous in the comments. People loved it. We didn't answer all the questions. So again, we promised that we'll just send those on the email and send the link to the newsletters and the recording to this session with more questions. And again, I thank everybody for joining us. And most importantly, I thank you, Liz and Deena, for sharing all your knowledge, not all your knowledge, a bit of your knowledge with us today. So thank you so much for everybody. And,
Thank you.
Great rest of your week.
Thank you for having us. This was great.
Bye. Yeah.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.